Hi, and welcome to this chat about astrology and parenting. I'm here with my dear friend Jen Luckwald, who's a wonderful parent and a talented writer, and she's also a talented parent and a wonderful writer. Hi, Jen. Welcome.
Hi, Gina. Thank you for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
Yay, I'm so excited to have you here. I asked you to get together for this chat, Jen, because you mentioned astrology and a chat we once had in a recent Substack post of yours. I'll put a link to that in the description. But can you talk just a little about that article and also about how people can find it and you and your work?
Sure, absolutely. So the article is called Princess Beast Loves Having a Body. And I call my daughter Princess Beast. I should probably say that right up front so people know who I'm talking about. I don't want her to be Googleable, but she's a Taurus, and poor little thing, I'm a Gemini, and her father is an Aquarius. So her life is full of many astrological challenges. But I have enjoyed so much having the experience of getting to know her and her earthiness, and we talk about that a lot, you and I, when we chat. This post was really focused on that, and the Substack in general is called Old Mom Things, and it's about my experiences being an older first-time mother. I had Princess Beast and then turned 42 about 5 weeks later.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the interesting thing about that is that actually there aren't as many differences between being an older mom and a younger mom as I was expecting, but it has been interesting to spend this period of time in my life getting to know her.
Sure. And that's an interesting thing astrologically, too, that I actually hadn't thought of until just now. So many aspects of this that we'll get into as we talk, as it relates to sort of astrology and parenting. But something I hadn't thought of actually until just this moment is the age at which you become a parent. If you're having a child after 30, after that first Saturn return, which is around the age of 29, it's sort of like at that point that all of your planets have actually really come online. Saturn is the furthest planet that we can see with the naked eye. So it comes all the way around to return to its natal position when you're 29. And so it's like the limit. It's sort of the deepest maturing responsibility. A lot of people actually have a baby around then.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. Or it can be all kinds of things. It can be, something with a parent that sort of ages you, or a different level of job responsibility. But
or for random example, you could run away to New York at the age of 29, which is what I
did. Perfect. You moved out there completely by yourself and didn't know anybody, so that took a certain maturity, for sure, like an independence as well.
I do find that really interesting. I know for me, I'm a much better mother as an older mother than I would have been as a younger mother. I don't say that in general for all people, because I know some really excellent young parents.
Mm-hmm.
But for me, I'm very patient. I know that a bad day is not forever, which I think I learned at about the age of 40. Things that are very useful in parenting.
You and your husband as well coming in with those Aquarius, Gemini, air energies to your Earth sign child. That's very interesting as well.
We like to joke that she's going to have to call her Virgo grandmother for support her whole life.
Yeah. So it's weird how Virgo is like air sign adjacent. I feel like Virgo,
because Mercury, right?
Yeah, because of Mercury. Yeah, exactly. And it just feels like it, doesn't it? It's still sort of like communicative and
yeah, like my mom is the Scrabble champion. She could, beat anybody's time in a crossword puzzle. Yeah.
I wonder if you might read a little of the article here, and then we can discuss it.
I'm going to start about halfway through because that's when we really get into the astrology. So I think that's what people will be most interested in.
Okay, that sounds great.
And we're starting with you, which is also great. When Princess Beast was a baby, my astrologer friend Gina, that's you, offered insight into PB's sun sign. Tauruses really like having a body, she said. This is certainly the case for my girlie. Her favorite thing to do on her days off is to recline naked on a fuzzy blanket and drop snacks into her mouth while she watches TV. It's like being the mother of a tiny Roman emperor. I feel an urge to peel some grapes. She also really loves her body. This is mine belly, she'll say, patting her round tummy like you'd pat a very good dog. Or, Mine hair is beautiful. It helps that she is legitimately cute as a button, but we all know beautiful people who feel like beep about themselves. On my own low self-esteem days, I sometimes think that I would trade any other measure of worldly success if I could just manage to keep PB feeling this good about herself forever. I'm trying. We do something we call Belly Appreciation Day, which is when we pat our own bellies and thank them for their hard work. Thank you, Belly, PB will sing. Thank you for turning my food into poop. Thank you, Belly, I'll say. Thank you for growing my wonderful baby. One day, as we did this, PB leaned forward and kissed my belly, right above the scar where I had my herniated belly button repaired after giving birth to her giant body. Thank you, Mama's belly, she said tenderly. It sounded a lot like I love you.
Thank
She's a very
you so
good
much
girl.
for sharing.
Thank you so much for letting me.
Yeah, a few things come to mind to discuss a little bit more with you. I think it's really interesting with your daughter. I think about things like that earthiness, Taurus really enjoying cooking and gardening and putting their hands on anything that's natural and from nature, right? So the ground or food or anything like that.
She is my little earth mama. She really is. Like, she loves gardening. She helps me with the garden every summer, and she'll say to me, we are both gardeners, so we like to grow things. I
really
made my husband a birthday cake. Yeah.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
I made my husband a birthday cake this weekend, and she was like right in there helping me with every step.
And, it's interesting, I think, as a Gemini, and your husband might be this way too as an Aquarius, like what brings you guys comfort when distressed might be talking about it. You might really crave to talk about the problem. Whereas maybe your daughter might enjoy those more earthy activities are what is going to help her reset. Doing a little cooking, doing a little gardening.
Did I tell you that she asked us to build her a chill-out tent?
No, but I like that. It's very self-aware as well.
First of all, I was like, okay, congrats on being way ahead of where I was as a child. But she said, I think I need a place to calm down. And she had a play tent, and she said, I think I want to reorganize this tent so that I can go in there when I'm upset and be alone.
She needs to get away from all this air energy for a moment. Go into a little quiet.
Who could blame her? Yes, exactly.
Is she quiet by nature, would you say?
I have a feeling that as she's older, she'll be of fewer words. She's chatty now, but in the same way that if you were to give a child a personality test, most of them would come up as extroverts. If you were trying to figure out extrovert versus introvert, which is why you probably shouldn't give like a Myers-Briggs to a kid, but I think she's probably going to be quieter as an adult, but it's really more this stability than anything else.
Well, that's Taurian stability.
Yeah, like I kind of float on ideas, and I'm like, oh, there's a new idea. And she's like, we need to get back to the point, Mama.
That would be a really big difference, would be a desire for change and a desire for stability. I would say those are defining traits of a Gemini and a Taurus. And sometimes you have less in common with the sign that's back to back than like anything else. The energy really changes when it goes from one to the next. And it's sort of that, the way it goes back and forth between masculine and feminine. And, there's just sort of like a structure to it where it's sort of the natural structure of it to be really different. But yeah, I mean, that is a really big difference when I think about it. Like a Taurus does not really enjoy change, but yeah, from that place of really enjoying stability. And a Gemini really kind of doesn't enjoy stability, but only from a place of really loving change so much.
Yeah, I really do love change. We've talked about this with tarot too, like how I don't freak out if I draw the tower. I'm like, good, burn it down. Let's see what happens next. Which
in a way can be more of like a Scorpio trait. Don't you have Scorpio rising though? You're Scorpio rising, right?
I'm Scorpio rising.
Whenever Scorpio and Gemini are together, that's always really interesting in that way because it's sort of like, all things secret and hidden are cool with you. If you have to, it's
I respect that in other people too. I'm like, I'm here to hear whatever you'd like to tell me, but also if you need to keep that to yourself, I get it.
Well, and I think it relates to the idea of like change. It's like Scorpio and Gemini, well, Scorpio in particular, I think, is willing to go deep and really even willing to sort of suffer a little bit for the sake of transformation.
Yeah. That doesn't sound like fun to me.
No. Gemini's like, I'll tell a funny story about it instead of the truth to make it lighter. Whereas like Scorpio's like, it's okay, I'll walk through the fire.
That is absolutely the case. And, Geminis, we're kind of always looking for an opportunity to tell a story anyway, and we have a very flexible relationship with the truth, so that's all cool with us.
So tell me more about the parenting side of it and how it's been with how it's shaped your way of seeing the world, how it helps you to see things differently. How do you think you and your husband do the same for her?
Well, I mean, I think the biggest thing is I knew I would love her and I knew I would like her, but I wasn't prepared before I became a mother for how much I would admire her. Her stability in her nature is something that I don't really naturally have, but that I think is a great trait. And it's something that I try to care for as her mother. I want to make sure, because there's a scenario in which a Taurus could have a Gemini mother that could be very unsettling for that poor Taurus baby. And I want to make sure that she has her routines and, her chill out tent that she asked for specifically. And my husband and I both are very big on listening to her and believing her when she tells us what she needs. So,
yeah. How do you think that knowing she was a Taurus, like knowing about the astrology of it, did that help? Did it help in knowing these things, or would you have gotten to know that she sort of needs that anyway and adjusted around it? How do you think knowing the astrology of yourselves and your husband and hers helped?
It definitely helped. Although the funny thing is, she was supposed to be, in terms of her projected birth date, her due date, she was supposed to be an Aries. And I kind of wanted her to be an Aries because mostly because I like talking with you.
You have a lot of Aries friends, maybe. Yeah.
I do have a lot of Aries friends. We've got oxygen and fire, and it's a lot of fun. And
I feel like Aries and Gemini can talk, and they, in a way, have like more in common than Gemini Taurus. I can feeling that way. Yeah. That's interesting.
Well, and I thought how I actually have always had a lot of Taurus friends too, but I always felt like in the nicest way because we love each other, but we could also really drive each other crazy. But then also when I was pregnant with her, I never believed women when they told me this, or pregnant people when they told me this before, that they knew what their baby would be like. And then I was pregnant and I was like, I know who she is. I knew she was stubborn. I knew she'd need time by herself. I knew she was a really strong person. And then, but knowing the astrology, in answer to your original question before I went off the rails, has been so helpful because it kind of gives me something to come back to when I am not sure how to help her. In the same way that, like I read all these parenting books to learn about developmental stages and read about theories about how kids learn. You get as many tools as you can.
Yeah.
With the understanding that also your child is an individual and that these things evolve, our understandings evolve.
And astrology is just one more tool. I think that we should always be careful with astrology to not make it the whole thing, and not overemphasize it. It was definitely intended to just be, one more tool that helps us to interact with life in a conscious way. And it works so well that it can be easy, especially when you first get into it, to get really carried away. And I always think that like remembering that it was always supposed to just be a tool and that it was supposed to sort of help us face life with more.
Well, and you.
Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, you can't really, trying to think of the best way to express this. You can't really cheat the experience of living your life. So you can learn about what general things will be happening in the world and to you, and you can learn about your nature, but it's not going to let you off the hook in terms of actually going through your life and doing stuff. It's not like, I don't know, if you were to find out that a new phase we're about to open up where maybe you would have opportunities at work. Well, you'd still have to take those opportunities, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, very much so. It's like, it's interesting to sort of consult it and be, have an awareness of this astrology and hold it with sort of an open hand, if people are actually using it to make decisions about their life, then that's difficult. And then I think just a tool for introspection or stuff like that as well. I love what you said about how you can default to it when at a loss. It helps you to just call it up as like an easy archetype. I think that's really interesting.
Yeah, and it also, again, I'm sure that all parents feel very different from their children at the same time that you see like many of your traits reflected.
Yes, right.
It can be useful just even as a blanket reminder that your kids aren't you, that they're an entirely different person and have been since they were created, and that's just it. Like your job is to support them, not to change them. I
like that. And I think that there are different levels that we can use to look at an astrology chart. What I do is pretty different before the age of 13, right? I'll do a chart consultation with parents about their child, and we'll pull up their birth chart. But in a way, that's that child's chart, right? And we could say things in there about their partner in the future, their education, their career, right? There's lots of information in that chart, like there is for all of us. And they're not really participating. This reading isn't for them, right? They haven't really given permission or consent, I guess, right, for us to look at their chart like that. So I always try to look at it, after the age of 13, I'll work directly with the person with their own chart. And that's after Jupiter comes online, that planet right before Saturn. Very, very expansive. Yeah, very expansive. And we're sort of ready to take on bigger ideas like that after about the age of 13, a little bit more self-reflective and like higher metacognitive abilities. But before that, I'm looking for like things like that you would want to know as a parent. Like, you and your husband as air signs are going to default to trying to talk about problems, but she really would be better off, getting in a comfy tent that's set up and snuggly and appeals to her senses, calming those senses, calming your body is what calms her mind, where you guys might calm your mind to calm your body. And so
that is such a good way of putting it. So that's really what I want. It's funny, as you were saying, like you can find, like theoretically, you could see something about their future partner or maybe what they'd want to study as they continue their education. I wouldn't want to know that because I'd be so scared I'd put that on her.
Right.
That I wouldn't, even at 13, if she wanted to know at 13, I'd say, okay, and if you feel like telling me about it, that's fine. But like then that would be her thing.
Right.
In terms of like early childhood, the big
I don't even look at charts for that when I look at a kid's chart. I just don't even look at it. I remember when I was
it's too scary. It gets dicey.
Yeah, complicated.
Yeah, I think what I wanted to know and what you helped me with was understanding more about what she would need from me as a parent and what her strengths were, and then you don't want to say weaknesses in a child because it sounds like they're in a job interview, but like areas where they could use more support. Being in the arts. I could see you being someone like that. You as a kid, I might have recommended, make sure she's doing some sort of creative outlet to express herself. She has a lot to say. If only in self-defense, parents get her into some arts.
And we can also sometimes see like if her Mars is interacting with your Mercury or something. We can look at some aspects like that too, and you can see the way in which different people sort of activate us in different ways, right? Because you interact with that person and they have some planets that just really kind of bring your Mars to the surface or bring your Venus to the surface. And it's a very different experience with different people. So sometimes that aspect of it is helpful too.
I find that so fascinating because I've always been very aware of the Gemini tendency to say, this is a good story, but if we just changed it a little bit, it would be an even better story. And I used to see how I'd be different with different people and think, like, is that fundamentally dishonest? I like your way of putting it. It's not really that you're, like, purposely showing a different side always. Sometimes it's that people bring up things to the forefront in you because of who they are.
Yeah, we activate different parts of each other's charts.
Yeah,
and that's
I love
why when there's such symmetry with someone's chart, and maybe you're in a romantic relationship or it's a best friend or something like that, you can see that there's harmonious connections between multiple planets, and usually planets that have an emotional component to them. Like, I'll look right at the moon and Venus when I'm looking at a couple's chart, see how those planets are interacting. Because if there's synastry that basically makes everybody feel emotionally safe in this connection, that's when people can really be themselves. And so you'll see that in romantic relationships and best friends, and sometimes in parents and kids, but not always, because we are here to, it's not always, and we see that in astrology too. It's not always that harmonious is best, which isn't anything about having an easy or a difficult relationship at all. It's obviously you guys have an amazing relationship and will continue to. But yes, like those ways in which we're different, those ways in which we challenge each other, and how much that leads to growth, as well as the ways in which it's real easy between us. And I think children and parents are sort of known to nudge each other along in certain ways.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, even in terms of, like, I'm not naturally a tidy person, and some of that may just be me, independent of anything else in terms of astrology, but some of it I really do think is a Gemini thing, because I get excited about something and then I forget what I was doing.
100%.
And then I come back and I'm like, who did this? Oh, wait, it was me.
That's a solid interpretation. I like that.
Thank you. Well, at least it's a good excuse, right? But when she was 3, asked me to build her a shoe rack. And she organizes her shoes on that rack every day. If her shoes aren't in the right place, she'll say to me, Mama, these shoes are not in their box. I'm like, oh, I'm terribly sorry about that. I don't know what I was thinking.
It makes me think about how, maybe it's just mention of a clothing item. I was thinking about how your latest post, you said something about your husband being an Aquarius, and this analogy that I've heard you use before. Can you share that? Here?
I would love to share this with you.
Yeah, please.
Because the other important thing to know before we continue is that my husband does not believe in astrology at all, which I find hilarious because he is proof that it is real in all of his behaviors. He is an Aquarius. But yeah, so the way I describe my husband, and also Aquarius in general, is that my husband is always wearing a funny hat and you are never allowed to mention it.
Which is such a great way to explain an Aquarius, right? Like, because it's sort of, it's like of the people but not by the people. It's sort of detached but a humanitarian at the same time. It's such a funny stuff. I don't have a lot of Aquarius in my chart. I do have Venus in Aquarius. I like an unusual romantic relationship. I like freedom in a romantic relationship. But it's such a funny thing to be sort of like really into people but also need a little space. And that's very Aquarian.
I described his life's motto to someone like this. He believes that every person is deserving of basic human dignity, and also that every person kind of sucks.
Okay, like, perfect.
Both things are true.
So Aquarius.
Yeah. I know. Why doesn't he believe me? But anyway, it's okay because it's fun for me.
I love that. I always think of it as well as sort of, I think this time of year, which is Aquarius sun season, is a good representation of sort of the weirdness of Aquarius, for lack of a better word, where it's like the days are very, very cold, but they are getting longer, right?
Yeah.
It's like that weird part of winter where you're like, okay, it's winter, but also kind of sort of almost going to be spring soon. It has that weird tone to it.
Yeah, like you're exhausted, but there's also definitely a spring vibe.
Yeah, connected but disconnected.
Yeah, which is very Aquarius. It took me ages to learn how to fight with him, which sounds like a funny way to put it. Well,
no, I
you,
think
you
that's
have
true.
to be able to fight as a couple. That's really important.
100%.
You're going to.
Yeah.
And I was like, we should probably just keep after this, whatever this issue is, until we've totally dragged it through the gutter, and And he was like, no, I'm going to go deep inside myself. Mm-hmm. And I was like, how do you even do that? That's a magic trick. I'm like, where did he go? Can I learn it? The answer is no, I cannot learn it, by the way. I don't remember if I have any Aquarius in my chart, but if I do, it is not placed such that I have that power.
Right. No, it's true. I feel like a Gemini doesn't want to do that too much.
No, I don't. I would rather talk about it forever.
Hey, that's perfect.
That
Where's your
fun.
moon?
Oh, shoot. Where is my moon? I think my moon is in Scorpio too, but I have to check that.
Oh, I wonder if it is. Yes, we'll have to double check that.
We'll have to look. So my daughter has. I just looked it up the other day, and I wanted to have you do her chart at some point so that we know this for sure.
Yeah, we'll do that synastry thing. Yeah, we can do that synastry
I can't wait.
Thoroughly. Yeah.
But she's a Virgo rising. Can you believe? No wonder she's organizing everything.
Yeah, that is a lot of organizing.
I think this could work out really well for me, though. I could have a lovely home for the first time in my life.
It's true. She could be like cooking you guys dinner and just organizing the house, keeping it clean. They're interestingly a very, very hardworking, serious generation. This Gen Alpha, it corresponds with Pluto and Capricorn. They're almost like a throwback to the greatest generation. They have a synastry with that. They have a synastry with those people, which when I saw that like 10 years ago made no sense. But everything that's happened in the last 10 years helps me understand it a little bit better and how the world's going to need that when they're coming up.
This is why I think if you have the right headspace, it's okay to learn more about where things are going. As long as you don't say like, okay, I don't have to try because it's going to happen anyway, because that's not how it works. But like, it's really cool to see things coming and be like, well, that doesn't make any sense. And then
start to see why it does. 100%.
And then it does make sense.
And I found that like your intuition, your instincts really almost never lead you astray, whereas your thoughts really do quite often.
Oh, yeah.
But we're so taught to follow our logic.
Well, some of it is we don't really give ourselves enough credit. The reason that we put this together with our intuition is we're noticing a lot more than we realize we're noticing. Mm-hmm. And we're synthesizing that information. But you can't really always do it on the conscious level, as you say.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, a lot of things are beyond words. And I think that astrology is too. It's archetypes, it's energy. And so when we try to make everything make sense and put it into logical words, a whole lot of stuff isn't going to come through. But if you just kind of can allow, by you, I mean we, if we can all just kind of allow ourselves to open up and just feel the energy of a situation or of a person, stuff comes through that's sort of underneath the words, but says a whole lot more sometimes.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense.
Yeah. Oh, well, I feel like we talked about so many things related to astrology, not just parenting, and I think that was fine. And hopefully I'll think of a good excuse to have you back on here again sometime, because I always enjoy talking to you.
Anytime. This was so much fun.
Again, I'm going to link to all the information about how to find you and your post in the description.
And I will link to you too.
Yes, I appreciate that. Thank you so much.
Thank you.